absolutely love the TV show Interview with the Vampire. I've seen season 1 twice, and I think it's brilliant and gorgeous and wildly entertaining. And I also think it perfectly, almost episode by episode, breaks down the stages of an abusive relationship. If you haven't seen the show, here's what you need to know. Louis is a Black entrepreneur living in New Orleans in 1910. And Lestat is a wealthy French man who's been a vampire for almost 200 years. And he's just recently moved to New Orleans, and that's really all you need to know. This video contains spoilers for Interview with the Vampire Season 1. This video also contains topics that may be triggering for some viewers. Please proceed at your own discretion. Skip to the end of the video for resources for dealing with domestic abuse and intimate partner violence. Once Louis and Lestat meet in a carefully planned romantic fashion, Lestat says he's been watching Louis. Louis freaks out, and this is the appropriate response. Louis' gut tells him Lestat is a creep, but some red flags seem really romantic, like what comes next: love bombing. Love bombing is a hallmark of abusive relationships, and it can feel kind of fun. Lestat showers Louis with compliments, gifts, and unique experiences. These make Louis feel like nobody knows him better than Lestat, like nobody sees him the way Lestat does. Lestat says all the right things. He does whatever Louis wants. He tells Louis how much he loves him. He calls him beautiful. He gets in Louis' head, literally, he can read minds. And this might seem romantic, but it's actually very invasive. Louis tries to set boundaries with Lestat right away. He says, "Stop reading my mind," and since this is phase 1, Lestat listens, or at least he pretends to. Love bombing is very powerful. Victims will say things like, "My partner was so loving and romantic in the beginning. Maybe they'll be that way again." But an abusive partner was never fully the person you thought. They used love bombing to get what they wanted: you. Lestat uses another tactic to win over Louis: the sob story. Lestat drops personal anecdotes that expose his own trauma, like a story about his abusive dad. It's true that most abusers experienced abuse themselves, but this does not excuse their behavior. It's not a partner's job to save abusers at the expense of their own well-being. Now, I want to make a clear distinction. There's a difference between opening up to someone after you feel like you know and trust them and trauma dumping on someone when you first meet. The sob story is an example of the second one. This is manipulative. Lestat's story visibly upsets Louis' sensitive brother, and Louis yells at Lestat to stop. This is another red flag, and this is another time Lestat crosses Louis' boundaries. It also shows Louis and us that Lestat likes torturing people. Lestat reveals his identity as a sadist pretty early on. He's a vampire who's constantly killing people. But Louis doesn't seem to register this. Victims will tell themselves things like, "They would never treat me that way," or "They're just misunderstood." The truth is, if you see someone do something shocking to someone else, they are perfectly capable of doing that thing to you. Stalking, love bombing, and emotional manipulation via sob stories are all signs that you may have found yourself in an abusive relationship. Becoming a different species is the perfect metaphor for isolation. Louis can't go out into the sun. He feels different from the rest of humanity because now he has to eat people. But even before Louis goes full vampire, Lestat isolates him. Lestat kills Miss Lily, Louis' only confidant. Louis' brother dies and his family blames him. This sends Louis into an intense depression. That's when Lestat makes his move. He takes advantage of Louis' vulnerable state and gets him to make an insane commitment: become a vampire. I want to talk about power for a second. Love bombing, manipulation, and isolation give an abuser power over the victim, but built-in power dynamics exist as well. In America, race is one of them. Societal dynamics are another. Parents have more power than children, and men typically have more power than women. People who are older typically have more resources and therefore more power than people who are younger. So Louis probably shouldn't be dating someone 150 years older than him. Louis is Black during a very racist period of American history. He's already isolated by racism and systemic oppression. Lestat is white and very rich. Lestat has more power than Louis. He doesn't exactly use race to exploit Louis within their relationship. In fact, he's disgusted by the way Black people are treated in America, but he does take advantage of the ways society already isolates Louis. And Lestat is clearly more physically powerful than Louis. He has mind control powers and he can fly. Lestat appears to help Louis follow his dreams, but he calls his club the Azalea an illusion and begs Louis to ditch his career so that they can go travel. FYI, travel is another way of isolating people that seems romantic, but actually makes you fully isolated with an abuser, potentially. We start seeing incompatibilities between Louis and Lestat by the end of episode 3. Lestat loves killing, Louis hates it. This drives a wedge between Louis and Lestat that doesn't go away. Now, drinking blood isn't the best example, but it's not the worst. For example, if you're a vegetarian because you think the meat industry is inhumane and your partner can't stop eating steak because of the mad gains, that's going to cause problems down the line. Abusers will sometimes use guilt and shame to get you to change your mind about your values and beliefs, like how Lestat constantly bullies Louis for eating rats. That isolates victims within the relationship, making them feel truly alone. The point of isolation is to get victims to the next phase, control. After the initial euphoria of love bombing and the long process of isolation, the abuser starts making moves to control the victim. Lestat's attempts at control kind of flop because of Claudia, but there are a few moments pre-Claudia when Lestat does control Louis. Lestat spies on Louis during a romantic encounter, which again, huge invasion of privacy. And when Louis calls him out, Lestat acts like he didn't do anything wrong. When Louis points out the double standard, Lestat says he's okay with Louis having affairs as long as Lestat can have them too. But Louis knows this is a trap. It's worth mentioning that Louis and Lestat have different sexualities. Louis is gay and Lestat is bisexual, Louis is monogamous and Lestat is polyamorous. And these differences can coexist in an intimate partnership, but it's really important to establish boundaries before they are crossed. Lestat doesn't do this. He keeps cheating on Louis with Antoinette and he keeps lying about it. This destroys Louis' trust in Lestat. Lestat makes Claudia because he loves Louis and wants to ease Louis' pain, not realizing that he himself is the source of Louis' pain. Claudia has a strong sense of self. She becomes a vampire right around the time she begins puberty. She journals constantly and gets obsessed with learning about who she is. After she accepts her identity as a vampire, she has a mission: find other vampires. Claudia's strong sense of self, her goals, and her awareness of her own boundaries make it impossible for Lestat to control her, and Lestat hates that. It's worth noting that Lestat is an abusive boyfriend, and he's also an abusive father. He mocks and physically threatens Claudia's safety. He forces her to watch her boyfriend get incinerated, which is obviously traumatizing, and he's jealous. Lestat wants Louis all to himself. When Lestat crosses Claudia's boundaries, she reinforces them, and when he continues to do it, she leaves. Lestat's plan to get rid of Claudia backfires, though. Lestat has Louis fully isolated, but he still can't control him, and now Lestat is miserable too. He wants Louis to act in love with him, and Louis is not doing that, and when abusers don't get what they want, the claws come out. The writing is on the wall in episode 5. This is the episode that shows this is definitely an abusive relationship. In episode 5, Lestat beats the crap out of Louis. It's very clearly abuse. But Louis still can't set boundaries with Lestat. Lestat says, "Say, Lestat, I am never going to love you. It would help me a great deal." And I love that Louis says, "Let go of me." Lestat does let go of him. Physically, he plummets to his almost death, but not mentally. Lestat stays obsessed with Louis, and the cycle continues. Physical violence should always be a deal breaker, but there are other signs of violence like threats of violence, name-calling, and destruction of property that should be treated just as seriously. If you've reached the phase of violence in an abusive relationship, you have the perfect opportunity to walk away. Abusers will often feel a lot of guilt and shame around how they treated victims, and they will remove themselves. But beware, the cycle is about to start all over again. In episode 6, Lestat tries to repeat the cycle of abuse. He does some classic love bombing, buying Louis rare books and a Rolls Royce. Eventually, he gives Louis a gift so twistedly perfect that Louis does go back to Lestat. Lestat shares another sob story, which works on Louis, but not on Claudia. Lestat says, "I don't know what came over me. I was someone I don't want to be anymore. I've changed." But he hasn't changed. Lestat still hates Claudia, and he still lies to Louis. Abusers will usually use sweeping apologies and promises like "I've changed" to win back their victims. It's possible that an abusive partner has changed, but change takes a long time, a lot of self-awareness, and a lot of therapy. If you see the same signs, they haven't changed. They're just on their best behavior. Louis has set some boundaries of his own. He very clearly says no lies, and that includes lies of exaggeration and omission. Well, you might as well tell the vampire Lestat to stop drinking blood. Lestat says he killed Antoinette, and Louis finds out pretty quickly that he didn't. Louis is now traumatized and confused. He's being lied to, manipulated, and he's trapped in this abusive relationship. Claudia sees him more clearly than Louis sees himself, and Claudia sees a way out. Eventually, Claudia convinces Louis to finally leave Lestat. Only he can't do it. Claudia has the right idea. The only way to leave an abusive relationship is to cut off the abuser's access to the victim. Claudia hatches an elaborate plan to nix Lestat for good, but in the end, Louis can't burn the bridge or the body. Louis will never be free of Lestat until he decides for himself to banish Lestat for good. It has to be Louis' idea, not Claudia's. By the end of season 1, Louis is still in love with Lestat. He's still in the cycle of abuse, but at least for now, he's bought himself some space. I think Interview with a Vampire does an amazing job showing just how hard it is to leave an abusive relationship. There are often many feelings of guilt, shame, embarrassment, and still love towards the abuser. I haven't seen season 2 yet, and I'm excited for where they're going to take it, but I found season 1 super cathartic, and I loved the vampire metaphor. The best way to stay out of an abusive relationship is to know the signs and know yourself, so you know when your boundaries are being crossed and you can avoid getting in abusive relationships in the first place. But the truth is, anyone can find themselves in an abusive relationship, even vampires. If any of this sounds familiar, there are links in the description for resources to help people suffering from abusive relationships and intimate partner violence. Thank you so much for sticking around. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share it with someone you think it might help, leave a comment if anything resonated with you, and even if you don't do any of that stuff, thanks for stopping by. See you next time. Cheers.